In a quiet suburban neighborhood in Colorado, Walter, an elderly man with kind eyes and a gentle demeanor, moved in with his son Mike, daughter-in-law Laura, and their lively 4-year-old grandson Tommy. Walter had lived alone for years after losing his wife, but age and health concerns had caught up with him. His hands trembled with the telltale signs of Parkinson's disease. His eyesight had grown blurry and his steps were slow and unsteady. The decision for him to move in was made out of love, but it didn't take long for the arrangement to reveal its challenges. Every evening, the family gathered around the dining table for dinner. It was a cherished time for Mike, Laura, and Tommy to connect and share stories from their day. But for Walter, mealtime became an ordeal. His trembling hands struggled to hold a fork steady, causing peas to roll onto the tablecloth and milk to spill from his glass. Each mistake was met with frustrated sighs from Mike and Laura. One evening, after a particularly messy dinner, Mike put down his fork with an exasperated clatter. "We have to do something about Dad," he said, his voice tinged with annoyance. "I'm tired of cleaning up after his spills, and his chewing is so loud it ruins the meal for everyone." Laura, equally frustrated, nodded in agreement. "It's not fair to us. Dinner time used to be enjoyable, but now it's just stressful." The couple decided on a solution. They would set up a small table in the corner of the kitchen, away from the family. Walter would eat there, isolated from the main dining area. To prevent further accidents, they gave him a sturdy wooden bowl after he accidentally dropped and shattered a plate one evening. Walter didn't protest. He was too ashamed. Tears welled in his eyes as he silently ate alone, glancing wistfully at his family enjoying their meals together. Tommy, their bright-eyed and observant son, watched everything. Though he was too young to fully understand the complexities of the situation, he noticed the sadness in his grandfather's eyes and the lack of warmth at the small corner table. One evening before dinner, Mike found Tommy sitting cross-legged on the living room floor, intently working with some wooden blocks and sticks. Curious, Mike approached and knelt beside him. "What are you building, buddy?" he asked with a smile. Tommy looked up with a sweet, innocent expression. "Oh, I'm making a little wooden bowl for you and Mommy to eat from when I grow up." Mike froze, his breath catching in his throat. "Why would you do that?" he asked, his voice trembling. Tommy shrugged, still focused on his task. "Because that's what you do for Grandpa. When you and Mommy get old, I'll make sure you have a bowl like his." Laura, overhearing the conversation from the kitchen, stopped in her tracks. Her face paled as the weight of Tommy's words sank in. Tears filled her eyes as she realized the profound lesson their child had unknowingly taught them. Children learn by watching the actions of the adults around them. By isolating Walter and treating him with frustration rather than kindness, they had set a heartbreaking example for their son. That night during dinner, Mike stood up from his chair and walked to Walter's small table in the corner. Gently placing a hand on his father's shoulder, he said, "Dad, come back to the dining table. You belong with us." Walter looked up, his eyes wide with surprise. "Are you sure?" he asked hesitantly. Mike nodded firmly. "I'm sorry, Dad. We've been wrong. From now on, we eat together no matter what." Laura joined them, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I'm so sorry, Walter. We should have been more patient and understanding. Please forgive us." With a trembling smile, Walter allowed himself to be guided back to the main dining table. Tommy clapped his hands with joy as his grandfather took a seat beside him. From that day on, spilled milk, rolling peas, and messy tablecloths no longer mattered. What mattered was the warmth and love that filled their home. As time passed, the family's dynamic transformed. They learned to approach Walter's challenges with patience and humor. Mike and Laura found themselves appreciating the moments they spent with Walter, realizing that his presence was a gift, not a burden. Tommy, in turn, absorbed these lessons of compassion and respect, watching his parents treat his grandfather with kindness. Years later, as Tommy grew older, he carried these values with him. He often shared stories about his grandfather and the lessons he had learned during those family dinners. Walter's memory lived on, not as the elderly man who spilled milk or dropped plates, but as the loving grandfather who had brought his family closer together. This story reminds us that our actions speak louder than words. Children learn from the way we treat others, especially our family. By showing love, patience, and respect to our elders, we set an example for the next generation to follow. Let us strive to create homes filled with understanding and kindness where every member feels valued and loved. If you've ever experienced similar stories in your life, don't hesitate to share your thoughts or experiences in the comments below. We would love to hear your story.